Okay, this is question 2000, problem number 3. 500 randomly selected middle-aged men and 500 randomly selected young adult men were rated on a scale from 1 to 10 on their physical flexibility, with 10 being the most flexible. Their ratings appear in their frequency table below. For example, 17 middle-aged men had a flexibility rating of 1. So 17 middle-aged men had a flexibility of 1. That's the frequency for the middle age. And 4 young men had a frequency of 1. So 4 young men. So there's our frequencies. These should have been in L1, L2, and L3. Just to remind yourself, because it's been a while, we go to stat, arrow over to edit, press enter, and I've entered that data in L1, L2, and L3. I have some other things in L4 and L5, but L1 through 3 represent this problem. And it says display those graphically so that the flexibility of middle-aged men and young adult men can be easily compared. All right, so I've got that data entered in the calculator. And I'm going to go to my stat plots. Here's how I did that. Second quit. I want a blank screen. I press second, followed by the button above it. And I want that first stat plot on. I press enter. I drop down. I select the box plot. Always select the box plot that has the dots. That shows the outliers. Now, my X list is L1. And I do want my frequency. My frequency is L2. So that's my middle-aged men. I'm going to go back up all the way to the top and go to stat plot 2 because I needed to get the young men on. My X list is still L1, but now my frequency for young men is an L3. And I press zoom, followed by the number 9. And I should get those 2 box plots there. And I can use the trace feature and arrow in order to get the actual values, which are popping up at the bottom of the screen. Please remember, each section of the box plot, no matter how big or small, has 25%. So right here is 25% of the data. Right here is 25%. This is 25%. This is 25%. That corner is Q1. This is my median, or 50%. This is Q3, or 75%. All right, so make sure that you label your graph, because if you don't label it, you go from full credit to half credit. Make sure you have a scale. If we did that, we get full credit. Based on an examine of your graphical display, write a few sentences comparing the flexibility. First off, when they say compare, I need to make sure I'm using comparison words, and I need to completely cuss and BS. Remember, center, unusual features, shape, and spread. Well, in both cases, I don't see any outliers, so I'm not too worried about unusual features. So the median flexibility scores differ by 1, with young men's score being higher at 7, while the middle-aged men is at 6. Notice I compared, and you always have to be in context, but I'm talking about flexibility scores. So as long as I have it once, you got it covered. So the men's score is 7. So I'm very specific, and I have a comparison word of higher. So gosh, I certainly did the comparison. I've got my context. I was specific. That takes care of center. Center and being specific. The distribution of middle-aged men is reasonably symmetric, while that of young men is skewed to the left. All right, so I've talked about shape. And middle-aged men and young men as flexibility scores both have a range of 10 and fall within the same values. Both distributions have an interquartile range of 3. However, young men's covers the interval 5 to 8, while that of middle-aged men is 4 to 7, indicating the middle 50% of men have less flexibility. This would have been better if instead of using while, because while is not a comparison word, is saying while the middle-aged men is lower. All right. The middle-aged men is lower. So I have spread in there as well. The one thing I did not include is unusual features. And although they did not require it for safety's sake, there are no apparent outliers. Just say it for either distribution. So I should have said there are no outliers for either distribution. Now, one of the questions is, did I have to discuss IQR? And the answer is, as long as I talk about range, I don't have to talk about IQR. Or if I talk about IQR, I do not have to talk about range. You do not have to talk about both of them. You talk about one of them and you're covered. Okay, so hopefully that helps with that one. If there are any other questions, please pop them in the chat.